Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Watchers. We're The Watchers. I'm Victoria Burt with Killer Shot Films.
And I'm Kevin Marable with blackscript.com.
Good to see you again, Kevin.
Yes.
So, Kev, we're going to talk about a movie today
Yes.
that we both saw this weekend.
Yeah, and I was pleasantly surprised. I enjoyed this film. It's called They Will Kill You, and it stars Zazie Beetz, Mai Hala, Patricia Arquette, Tom Felton, Heather Graham, and Patterson Joseph, and is written and directed by Kirill Sokolov and Alex Litvak.
Yeah, I think I saw it first and then texted you,
Hmm.
and I was like, you have to go see this. Fantastic poster. So I went to go see it. Um, I will admit, I went to a 10 a.m.
Yeah, you went bright and early. I
I
went about 1:45, but you went bright
yeah,
and early.
and that might have been not the best move for me because I was still kind of like, it was like Saturday morning at 10 a.m. and I was like
Mhm.
up, at 9, and I ran over to the movie theater, and there were people in there though. There were like 40
Yeah,
people in the movie theater, which I thought was really great for a
yeah,
Saturday morning.
yeah.
Um, and I loved it. I thought it was so colorful and just action packed, and the
Mhm.
story felt um, new and
Yeah,
different, but sort of also similar.
right.
You know, it felt like an allegory for Dante's Inferno with all the layers and levels of different, like different levels of hell.
Yeah, and there was some some, I wouldn't say hidden gems, but there was kind of like little Easter eggs kind of alluding to what was going on in the house.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Before we do that,
yeah.
first of all, I'm gonna say spoilers are coming. A, B, give everybody the the summary, the
Okay,
plot, the story.
I got you.
Okay.
They Will Kill You is a horror action comedy centered on a woman who takes a housekeeping job inside a mysterious New York City residential tower with a dark history of disappearances. As she digs deeper into the building's secrets, she realizes its residents are tied to something far more sinister, forcing her into a violent, blood soaked fight for survival. The film blends supernatural horror, dark humor, and high octane action into a twisted survival story.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
I thought of you in the middle of watching this movie, and I
Okay.
didn't, and I didn't tell you what was about to happen because I know you don't like demon stories, like devil stories,
Right.
right? And so
Yeah.
I was watching and going, "Ooh." I said, "Uh oh."
Yeah. Well, you know me well
Yeah,
because
I was like, he's not gonna like that part. When the at the okay, flash forward, right, all the way to the end when the pig and the devil. I was like, he's
uh,
not gonna like this part.
well, it was even before that when she gets to the hotel and
Mm-hmm.
they show, it's raining, um,
Mm-hmm.
and they
And you
show
saw the satanic
yeah,
thing.
and they're showing all the symbolism on the outside
Mm-hmm.
of the door, and I was like, oh, here we go.
Yeah, but I
But
didn't tell you. I was like,
it's
oh, okay.
okay
Yeah,
because I it didn't wasn't off putting,
yeah,
but I really didn't know what was to come next, and from watching the trailer and whatnot, I knew there was going to be a lot of action involved, and so far leading up to that point, I enjoyed it.
yeah.
I was ready for the ride.
I was hooked too, and it was like here's okay. So I wanted to sort of like talk about it like this. Like I love the action. I love
Mm,
the tone. It looked like a kung fu
yeah,
movie. It had a little Quentin Tarantino. It had a
let's say
little,
Kill Bill. Yeah.
yeah. The colors. It was rich. It was shot beautifully.
Oh man.
Every indoor scene was wet. I mean, excuse me. Every outdoor scene was wet.
Right.
Everything was always slicked down and wet down.
Hmm.
Um, but what was interesting about it is how it started for
Yeah.
me,
Hmm.
right? Like it starts with them going into the two characters. What are their names again? Tell me their names again.
Zazie Beats
Asia.
and
No, not the real character. Asia and his.
oh, they didn't put the names next to it. Asia and
I can
oh,
find it. Asia and Maria. Here we go.
Maria.
So
Maria.
Asia is Zazie, right? And her
Mhm.
little sister Maria, and this is like 10 years earlier, and
Right.
they're going into a bodega. I don't know what they're called where they were in LA, but a bodega,
Mhm.
and they're trying to get some food but get help, and they're like, oh my god, he's coming. And then this brute of a man comes in,
Yeah.
and I don't know if he's a bounty hunter. I don't know if
Right.
they're being trafficked. I don't know what's going. It was so confusing and
Mhm.
so threatening immediately. You know
Right.
what I mean? In a different kind of way than what I thought the movie was going to be about,
Right.
right? Because
Right.
even in the trailer, it talks about, someone says, "How did you learn to fight like that?" She's like, "Prison." You don't expect that first beat, that little prequel,
Yeah.
you know, um, the little setup of why she went to jail to be so dark,
Right. There's
right?
a few little timeline jumps in there.
Yeah, I loved that. And I loved, then she shoots the father
Hmm.
and then takes off,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Leaves the sister behind.
Leaves the sister, which is the emotional reason she can't stop
Right.
ultimately,
Hmm.
right? Because she abandoned her once,
Yeah.
which I thought, now that's a good setup.
Hmm.
That was a good setup.
Yeah. And it didn't take a whole lot to be able to set it up. And then from that point on, you were like, okay, now I understand what's about to happen, why she's
Yeah.
doing what she's doing, and let's go.
Yeah, it was great. And then I think it just jumps right to the building, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Right, because it does a lot of jumping back and forth in time.
Right.
But
She gets out of jail. She gets out of
yeah,
prison,
yeah.
and she goes. It's raining again. 10 years
It
later,
was
it's
always raining.
yeah, it's
It really
raining
was.
again. She shows up at this tower, and they show from the top down to the bottom. She buzzes the door, and
The illustrious, the
Patricia Arquette,
magnificent,
yeah,
doing an Irish lilt. Patricia Arquette, she
yeah.
was fantastic.
She opens the door, and Zazie, who plays Maria, says who she is, and
Yeah.
it wasn't Maria though at first.
No, 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 no. She plays Asia.
Asia,
Maria is the
okay,
sister.
sorry,
It's
Asia. It
okay.
wasn't Asia at first. I forget what the name was that she was going.
No. So, oh, you mean the person she pretended to be?
Right.
Don't remember.
Yeah. She
So
was
she present
pretending.
um I guess she substituted
Mhm.
herself for somebody.
Yes.
Um, but we don't really know that because we don't really even know her name when we see that first scene. So when he
No,
shows
at
the
first, no.
ID,
Yeah,
yeah.
had no clue. And so Patricia Arquette lets her in.
Mm-hmm.
She's under the assumption she's there to become part of the help, and she shows her to her room. She gets let into her room, and she's looking around. Patricia Arquette's looking all around her room, and
Mm-hmm.
she
Well,
finds
that's when we first meet the husband. Well, you don't know it's the
that's
husband, but
right.
right,
That's
you
right.
meet
The
the
husband, yeah,
black guy who is uh, 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 looks like a caretaker or something like that. He comes out of the room and she's like, "What are you doing?" That was such a great beat too because you know it felt like a real marriage. Like
yeah,
that sort of like and that sort of like sniping at
mm,
somebody when you're married and what are you doing in there
yeah.
and 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 it was such a nice payoff because then she goes into the room with her
She was like, "If
and
anything out of whack,
yeah,
just let me know."
yeah. And here's me, I'm a New Yorker, right? I was like, that's a nice room.
Oh, right, right.
That was not a small room. I
No,
was like,
yeah,
I mean, like that in New York City would be like 5 grand.
right. To be able to just come straight off the street and to be
Yeah,
up in a room like that, absolutely, with its own bathroom and all of
and it
ev
had a little kitchenette. It
yeah,
had some nice storage. It
yeah,
had a big bathroom.
yeah. Big, big,
You see how
big
much
little
space she had around the bedroom,
I
around
know.
the bed? That was a nice apartment.
Yeah, it
It
was.
was I was sort of like, I was like, all right, that's because I can think to myself, why is she like immediately just, she seems like a smart kid.
Mhm.
Why does she have to go work there? Like
That's all yeah,
immediately,
you were like, what is this all about? Like, why is
Right.
she and you don't know that that's why she's going to that tower,
Right. You don't.
just there. You just
Yeah,
know
I love
she's
that.
going to that tower, because she just got out of prison and maybe she's looking for, like some sort of work release program or something.
And what was great about it was you immediately know something's wrong,
Mhm.
right? Um, and when she takes the shower, that you see the "they will kill
Yeah,
you" come
yeah,
up in
I
the
thought that was
in.
brilliant as far as showcasing the title.
I took a picture of it on my
Yeah.
phone. I thought it was so clever. I
Yeah.
did. I posted about it that we were going to talk about it,
Mhm.
and
I didn't know it was the husband at that point.
I didn't either. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just clever.
Yeah.
I thought it was just sort of like a wink way to show us the. I thought that was the title card. In the very end, the title card came up, but you
Right.
know, that's just so smart.
Mhm.
You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Because I was eventually thinking at some point before she got into the shower, what did he do? And I kept,
Looking around. Mhm.
and then I was like, oh well, except for when there was like that little thing on the rug, and you were like, oh, maybe that's what he did. She should look under the rug.
Right.
But then we have the man in the what you call that
Oh, the like, in the vent.
in the vent.
Yeah. It's like
No,
behind
ma'am.
the wall, really.
No.
Because for one, I would when I go into hotel rooms, I'm not that big of looking around, but I do pay attention to when things are kind of in odd places, and that
Okay.
is in an odd place. The vent is in an odd place. The mirror is in an odd place.
Were they?
I mean, it's pointed right, like it's showing like right to
But
face.
isn't that where the air conditioning should come out?
Yeah, it should, but it
Uh oh.
it was just kind of set up for like, okay, somebody's watching from another room, or maybe a hidden camera or something like that, and that's
Yeah.
immediately where my mind went. Not
Well, I
thinking,
mean, my mind went there when you saw the little eyeballs,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Didn't you? Right?
right. But,
Um,
but when they moved from the vent to the fridge,
that was crazy. That was crazy. I was like, this is not good.
yeah,
It's not good. And that kind of setup, like it reminds me of that movie, The Cabin in the Woods, when like
yes,
some space is just set up to be a
a trap,
trap for
a
you,
trap. Hmm.
And I used to travel a lot for work, and oddly enough, I'm not that suspicious in hotel rooms. But what I do is jam the door. I always jam the door.
Hmm.
I'm really paranoid about somebody having a pass key, or
Access, yeah.
you know,
Hmm.
um, hadn't really thought about the vent,
Oh yeah,
which is
vents,
kind of terrifying.
vents, mirrors, smoke detectors, anything that could hold a camera or somebody could be looking through.
But listen, I'm
Yeah,
a woman
it's gonna happen.
I'm a woman of a certain age. Ain't nobody trying to take photographs of me,
You'd be surprised.
and
You'd be
nobody let them have them. I don't know what to say about all that. You know what I'm saying? No, I'm
yeah.
joking. But to me, more frightening is like somebody coming in the door. So when she like Jimmy, when she stuck the actually that's not the best way to do it. I went on a cruise. Let me just tell you, and I bought one of those locks that
Oh
to
yeah,
like lock the doors.
for sure.
Um, and so I really, uh, I really identified when she did that. But
Mhm.
when they start to come in, right? So she's not being paranoid.
Right.
Oh, and we missed the part where she met one of the couples, that weird couple, the
The
older
old couple,
couple,
yes, the
and then
old,
the blonde woman, right?
right.
She meets some of the characters. They're
Yeah.
super weird,
Hmm.
you know. Um,
Yeah, the blonde woman is Heather Graham, by the way.
yeah, she was
Yeah,
great.
she was, and I didn't
She was
realize it
great.
was that. To be honest with you, I didn't realize it was Heather Graham until later.
Yeah, and then Tom was, in Potter. He's
Yeah.
in Harry Potter, and you know, I uh, I thought they were weird and funny, and they were hamming it up a little bit with the sort of like feeling of being creepy, but it worked. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like it didn't feel like hokey. It just felt like they were all in the same movie, so it really works,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
Um, and so she goes to bed, and then the pig face,
Yeah.
no, no, and the feet, and
Oh,
no, the whole
yeah.
thing. No, how does she not wake up? That was the one thing I remember sitting there going,
She was out of it.
my my neighbor could slam their door, and I'm like, what's that?
Right.
What's going
Yeah.
on?
Especially
Right?
being first night, unfamiliar
No.
place. Yeah.
No. So it was interesting.
But
So
before she even goes to sleep, and I think even before she took a shower, she lays her bag down. She kind of opens it up
right.
and starts to put things in the closet. And you really don't you see it, but you really are like, what's that? What's
Well,
that?
it clangs, like it makes
Right. Yeah.
noise, right?
And so you don't really realize what she has in her bag. You know.
Well, here's a little plot flaw.
Hmm.
If she's got all that in her bag, I mean, maybe the point is that she wasn't thinking that someone was going to come in and hurt her.
Right. I don't think she. I
If
don't.
I have if I have like a machete in my purse,
Hmm.
it's coming to bed with me. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Under my pillow.
something.
Yeah.
But I can saying it out loud now. She wasn't actually suspecting that they
No.
were going to come into the room,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Um, so very quickly, I don't think this is all under 6 7 minutes. I really don't know, but it was a very quick first act with
Hmm.
like they show up in the room
Hmm.
and they start the fighting. The fighting is unbelievable.
Yeah. It was great.
I mean, she was doing it.
Yeah, all of it was great. The choreography was great. Zazie, she had the skills, with especially with the machete.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and
I'm going to try to watch a video about her training because it
yeah,
was really impressive. You
yeah,
know,
it
it
was
was
great to
really
see her in,
impressive.
in a role like that. Because
Yeah.
I don't think we've seen her in too much, action. I think she was in The Harder They Fall, but I don't think she was in anything else really that related to action like this.
Yeah. She was great. And um, she it was so funny because when it started to happen and they started fighting and she knocked out the guy, but Heather Graham's character, I'm just gonna call her the blonde.
Yeah.
When that bitch wouldn't die, like, and I don't mean before she got like where it looked like she died, but just
Right.
when they were fighting.
Hmm.
One of my personal pet peeves is people getting fatally hurt and it not affecting them. That really bothers me.
Whatsoever. Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I was sitting in a movie theater. Now, there were more people than I thought. So I was a little loud in the theater. So I was like, is this bitch going to die? I think I said that like full throated
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I couldn't understand how she was so buoyant. She
Getting
just
up.
kept
Yeah.
popping back up.
Right. And I thought the same thing, honestly, because it hadn't been revealed yet. And
Yeah.
I was like, what's going on here? Like she stabbed
Right.
these guys and slashed and
Like,
you know,
what is
cut cut
happening?
cut body parts off, and they're still moving like it's nothing.
But so she gets out of the room, and that's when we get the reveal.
When the guy with the missing foot and the missing hand, and then the guy with the missing head came out the room holding his head, I was
It
like,
was
wait a minute.
great.
I said,
This is
wait a minute,
great.
wait a minute.
Hmm.
What's happening here?
Yeah, but it was crazy and it was great and the graphics were good,
Yeah,
so it worked. Like when those limbs started going back together,
yeah. Hmm.
they really played that regenerative thing so beautifully.
Yeah,
And
it was
like
good.
even like when we go forward a little bit in the story, and she's like trying to get it's revealed that she's looking for her sister.
Hmm.
The caretaker husband, who's a black man,
Hmm.
who's married to Patricia Arquette's character,
Hmm.
wants to help her. He's having, he's part of this crew that has to sacrifice a worker
Right.
to remain um,
On the good
uh,
side, or
on
to
the remain immortal, to remain
immortal.
immortal,
Yes. Yeah.
right? So
Hmm.
it's revealed that they can't be killed. Anything is cut off them, it regenerates. Anything that's hurt gets fixed.
Right.
It's so great because now you're really going,
So,
uh
like,
oh,
yeah, like how's she gonna survive, and
right.
how's she gonna kill these people or get to the point to where she escapes?
Yeah, and everything you think, like she tries to go out the window, the thing bomb,
Yeah,
like she can't break the glass,
shatterproof glass. Yeah.
and we remember from the beginning when the door closes and it's like clang, 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 and you're like, yikes,
Hmm.
she's
Hmm.
trapped, right? And so then he comes in and he's sort of like, I know where your sister is. Let's get you out of here. Let's get you to your sister anyway, right? Because when does she say, "Where's my sister?" Because it's a flashback, right? That we find out that she's looking for the sister, right?
Right. Yes. Hmm.
So it flashes back to her in prison. You
Hmm.
see where she learned to fight. You see how
Right.
she fought.
Right.
And
And,
she fought really because her father used to beat her, which is
mhm.
horrible. But,
Yeah.
you know, she took that skill for fighting into prison and then took that fighting into the
Into this.
hotel.
Yeah. Into this world.
And now we learn that she's there to find her sister who she abandoned in
Hmm.
that first scene.
Hmm.
And she found that that's where she came to work.
Yeah. She couldn't rest until she got her sister back.
And there was that funny character that was like helping her. Remember the guy who like
Oh
was
yeah.
doing the PI or something like that
In the little tiny car.
in the little tiny car. Yeah, and I mean, but I liked like where every time you thought, they just kept it moving. You know what I mean? Like the guy says, "I know where your sister is," and then it becomes we got to go through the ducts, right? So
I thought,
everything pays off,
yeah,
right? So they
I thought
show
that
us
was
the air
great.
ducts earlier,
Mhm.
and then they're in the air duct. So it wasn't just like, so there was like a nice payoff to that.
Yeah, and I like the visual of how they did that, where they're
Oh,
in
it
the
was great.
the air ducts and the crawl space, and they're
It was
just crawling
great. I mean,
all
it's
the
a
way into,
pretty big air duct.
yeah, and even just the point of view when they're showing from the front, and the the people that are after her are crawling, and then they show from every angle, but even the
Mm-hmm.
side view, kind of more of the um uh not a a different perspective. The POV, just
Mm-hmm.
kind of like a expanded view of the duck. I thought
Mm-hmm.
that was brilliant. That kind of reminded me of like watching cartoons or something of that nature. Really don't see that in movies the way that they shot it.
Well, it's like if you remember in John Wick, I cannot remember which one. Three, maybe four. How many John Wicks are there? Four.
4.
So
Hmm.
the third one, maybe the fourth. I don't know. What I'm saying is, there was that amazing shot at the top where Wick was going through,
Oh,
and
right, right, right.
right,
Yes,
like
yes,
that's a really fun angle because it
yeah,
feels very much like a video game.
right,
Um, and that whole duck thing was really funny because there was a couple of things going on. Right, she'd taken out the woman's head,
yes,
and it was growing back like a little Brussels sprout,
right.
right? And her
Yeah,
eyeball
she gouged her eye out,
was
and
following her.
yeah, and it was literally just hopping around. But
I was like, you know what? Just own it. They just did it. They just had the eyeball.
my one of my favorite parts about that was when the eyeball got to the point to where in the ducks they had to go up, and the eyeball looked up, and then it
Bing,
went to
bing,
one
bing.
it went to one corner and started to bounce back and
Yeah.
forth and made it up to the second
It
level.
was
That
so
was great.
clever. It was so clever. Like it kept playing with the genre. It kept playing with so it was funny. And that,
Yeah,
so that was really cute. And then finally, you know, she gets to her sister, and this is sort of like the next big beat when they have the reunion,
right,
right? And I really was just thinking, so great, but now what you gonna do?
right.
Because you still
Now
got
they
to
got to
get the
get
hell
out of
out of
there
there.
together. Yeah, but the sister drops the bomb and says, "I know what this place is, and I don't really want to leave."
Yeah, she was one of them,
Yeah.
or about to be, I should
Hmm.
say. She
Hmm.
was about to be, because later we learn
Right.
that the girl that she replaced was her first sacrifice.
Yeah. She was
Yikes!
she was meant to be a sacrifice. Yeah. So she had set it up to where Asia, the person she came in as, was supposed to be sacrificed.
Yeah, no, 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 no. Asia was
Yeah.
her real name.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. The person who she came in to be.
Oh,
I
right.
don't
I'm
remember. Yeah.
sorry.
I
So
don't remember.
I don't remember her name either. The
Yeah.
maid. Let's just call her the maid. She
Right.
replaced the maid, and
Hmm.
the maid, was it Elizabeth?
I don't remember.
Can't remember.
Yeah.
Okay, so they replaced the maid, and it's really great. I'm gonna back up. I'm sorry we're so out of order, but the movie was told in a little zigzag. So I loved it when the handyman came to her and was like, "You didn't see my note?"
Right. He's like, I put it on the mirror for you.
I was like,
Clear
oh,
as day. Yeah.
that
That
is great.
was the perfect way to express
Perfect.
it and to actually write it into the story, into the script.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Mhm,
It was fantastic. Um, so now we have that really great moment where she's like, no, you're coming with me,
mhm, mhm,
right? And
mhm.
she's got her and she's carrying her and she's like moving her through the place and they're chasing her. And then they end up in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Great stove, by the way.
Right.
Right?
One of
And
the $5
yes, I was like, ooh,
chef's kitchen.
whoever did the production set design, nice. It was like nice.
Mhm.
Um, so that's sort of when the sister turns and won't allow them to kill her because
Right.
she fights back for her sister. You know, she's like, I may not want to go with you. I may hate you. I may be angry at you, but I'm not going to let them kill you.
Right.
You
Mhm,
know,
mhm.
and they have. I mean, it's just fight scene after fight scene after fight scene,
Yeah.
but it's like why they're fighting and how they're fighting that just keeps changing, right?
Right. And
And
they endure all of it, and these people just won't die.
they won't die, and they can't kill her. So
Right.
that's a really great way to keep it going
Right. Yeah.
without it feeling like
Like,
somebody at some point has got to die. And
yes.
that's how they keep it out of the scream space,
Mhm, mhm.
right? Because Scream's problem is that real people who are not protected by the El Diablo
Right.
are
Right.
getting stabbed and are living.
Yeah. No bruises, no blood.
Nothing. Getting up and doing video recordings after it. Um, so then we go to the ballroom fight scene, or it was either a ballroom or a dining hall, and it
Right.
was like black,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
she's got the knife, excuse me, the axe on
On fire.
blaze.
Yes. Yeah. And so she's chopping heads.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
So not only are they getting stuff cut off, they're catching fire. It was great. It was good. And it showed the whole time where she was getting hurt, but even she didn't stop. But you
I mean,
can
she
see
was a little more hurt
it was
than
it was in
yeah,
her pain was more realistic and
yeah, yeah.
it was expressed properly, I think. And it was showcased properly. It wasn't unbelievable.
And I'm wondering, like, so they had the fuck floor,
Yeah.
right?
And that was
That was
when she
something,
was still with the handyman. She was and
right? And that's where she found her sister.
yeah. And he was like, yeah.
And then they were on another floor, which was that the food like gluttony floor, because that was like the kitchen and a dining room. I
I
wonder if
think
that's where they go to like eat, because if these are
that was
like
the third floor, right? I
the
think that was the third.
sins.
Yeah, I think it was the third floor, and that's where all the help was, I want to say, at that point. Because they were in the elevator shaft at that point.
Oh, right, the elevator shaft.
Yeah. They were trying to escape through the elevator shaft at that point.
Man, climbing up that elevator shaft was taking way too long.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was, but like I wasn't
But
mad at it, but I was
that
just
wasn't the tail. That wasn't the tail end of it. I think they went back into the elevator shaft, but they made it to the third floor. And then at that point, they made the announcement where like all of
everybody, all the staff, come get
yes,
them,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So when they finally catch them, right? They finally catch them and corner them, and they can't. And I was thinking, what the hell's going to happen now?
Yeah.
Then they take her to the cold floor,
Mm-hmm.
where she's like, it's a pig on a stick. It's kind of funny.
She's like, really?
Really, I was like, that's funny.
But then you see the shadow of
Ooh, yeah.
background.
Through that, like
Yeah.
fogged over,
Mhm.
cloudy circle portal
Yeah.
to hell.
He crawled into the
Ooh,
pig.
that was so good.
Mm-hmm.
I know. I saw your
Yeah.
little face. You were like,
Yeah.
but it was creepy. It was
It did look creepy. The only my I had a gripe there
Okay.
is when, and I know I'm kind of fast forwarding a little bit, but
It's
when
okay.
the pig head grappled onto Patricia Arquette and it became like the final boss almost.
Arquette devil. Yeah.
Yeah. That's when it started to look a little unrealistic to me.
So you're saying to me, let me understand you, that the pig head on a stick
No,
Felt real.
no,
Felt
obviously,
realistic.
no, it didn't. It
Okay,
didn't. But
I'm just checking.
people use things as the symbolism. So
Yeah,
that part I could still understand putting it
yeah,
on a stake or on a stick or whatever the case may be, and that's what they are
yeah.
worshiping. Or
I have to
but
say,
once it came to life,
yeah, I liked that part, honestly.
it
Okay,
was
so
still
let's
cool. It was
let
still cool to watch. It
well,
just
I'll tell you why I liked it. So you can see what my head I didn't bump up against it as much
okay.
as what you're saying. It's
Mm,
like I liked okay, so now we have this like whole conversation with the devil and that the sister has to write the name on
yeah,
the skin, which was helpful because I was like, oh, I understand,
right,
right?
right.
And you know, the husband is like wiped off, so you see what happens and he dies, right? And
Mhm,
so you get the sort of like what the rules are, right?
mhm, right.
And when the sister is given the choice and she's like, I'm sorry, I'm going to do it, and she's got to
Ah,
write
yeah.
her name on the thing and then kill her sister, that's the moment that the younger sister would be immortal.
Mhm,
that
mhm.
was that was great because I was totally believing that she was writing her name, right?
Right. Me too.
She
I thought she
right?
was
I
like,
was like,
sorry,
oh
sorry,
shit.
sorry, sis.
Sorry, right? I was like,
Yeah,
wow. So
yeah,
she like writes her name and then slits her own throat. I'm still not fully caught up. I'm still like, oh my gosh,
right.
why is she doing that? I don't understand.
Sacrificing herself.
And
Mhm.
then the sisters, and then Asia starts Asia or Asa.
It's Asia. Asia.
Asia starts fighting
Mhm.
and gets hurt and doesn't die. And then you're like,
Like, oh,
oh
snap.
my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. And
She's like,
leading up to that, those fight scenes inside of that space too, when
yeah,
the guy got wrapped around the hook and pin,
yeah, yeah. Oof, that was
wrapped the other
creepy.
guy where the hook was on his balls or whatever.
Oh, is that where it was? I didn't
Yeah,
even catch that.
and
Okay.
like they kept dying and coming back to life and dying and coming back to life. They're like experiencing the same death over and over again. I thought
Yeah.
that was like a good analogy
That's
or like a double entendre with what would happen in hell technically.
but that's literally like in Dante's Inferno that you die over and over again, I
Oh,
believe.
right, right, right. Yes, yes.
Right? I think
Yeah.
like that's I'd have to like look it up, but I feel like that's
They
in
show
there.
it. They show it several times, and I thought that was
I didn't catch that. I didn't catch that they were doing it over and over again.
yeah. Even the guy that his head got mounted to the AC, and he was
Right.
frozen. Yeah.
Right.
And
Right.
the cold air was
Came
coming
out the
out.
smoke, right? Like, yeah, that was funny.
Mhm.
Um, and then she started really kicking ass.
Yeah.
But I thought, how is this going to end? They're all immortal.
Right. That's why I was wondering.
I was
Like,
like, I don't understand. But then, to your point, Patricia Arquette is the only one who's not like at least regenerating, and
mhm.
she starts fighting with her, and she calls for help,
Yeah.
and she takes the head,
Mhm.
pops it on, and it
Yeah, that was her mistake. That was her mistake. And the husband didn't want no parts of it. He stayed in the room.
he was dead, didn't he die?
Did
Yeah,
oh yeah,
because they said because he betrayed them.
right. You know what? I
I
completely
know
forgot about that. Yeah.
poor brother, the one brother
No, trying to help him out. Trying to help him
should
out.
have left her ass alone, left her alone,
Yeah.
getting involved where he shouldn't be involved. Joking. But um, so yeah, so she's got the final boss fight,
Mhm.
and it did feel like a video game.
It did. It did.
It did feel
But it
like a
was
video game
enjoyable all the way through.
completely,
Um,
completely.
I I thought it was a great watch. You could follow along even if it's not really your style of movie. Um,
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
very easily watchable
Yeah.
and
Watch.
digestible.
Mhm.
Um, so she obviously defeats the devil.
Yeah.
I think the word pig is gordo in Spanish. I
Yeah.
think,
Yes. Yep.
right?
Gordo. Mhm.
El gordo.
Hmm.
And he very clever ending with burning the names, um, by burning the pig,
Yeah.
and watching then all the people die because now they're mortal.
Right.
Once she figures out how it works,
Hmm.
she goes after the head that way,
Yep.
burns it, everybody dies.
Hmm.
You think the sister's dead. She takes her outside. Old boy PI is sitting outside in the car. And you're thinking, where's she taking her?
Yeah. Troll, maybe, to get some help, but I think at that point she was long gone.
I was like, I don't know. But then we see she took her name off the pig's head.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so she regenerates. I was like, now that's
That
clever.
was great. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was clever. And my man driving the car was like, what is going on?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
It was so good. I really enjoyed it. I thought, um, it was a clever twist on that sort of very old plot about being trapped. I mean, it's pretty. There were some exterior things, but like the
Oh,
majority of the movie is just in that building.
right.
You know,
Yeah, and I'm assuming it's all, it's not obviously not a real building, but it's a set. So it's
no,
a,
of course, yeah,
a contained horror thriller.
yeah. It
Uh,
was great, and
yeah.
it's just like this hellscape
Mm.
of a building,
Mhm.
and you immediately feel trapped. You immediately don't know how she's going to get out.
Right.
And they did a really good job of not cheating that. Like it felt
Right.
real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even at the end when she had the card to
Mhm.
get out. You know what I mean?
And for as big as the hotel is, the rooms that they chose to show the majority of the scenes, they I think that they were um methodical, but not it wasn't a whole lot of going room by room. It was a lot of back rooms and behind walls, and
Yeah.
yeah, I thought that was great too.
Yeah,
It
like and if
didn't seem like the typical. It wasn't typical.
it wasn't typical,
Yeah.
right? And like if we think about how we talked about Scream and them using the walls,
Hmm.
this movie had the same sort of thing,
Same
but
thing.
they
Yeah.
did it great.
Yes. They
They did
executed
it
in ways.
believable, and it was terrifying, and I just thought,
Yeah.
it
It was
was
great.
really good. It was
They
really
did,
good.
they did a good job with this.
Um, and I liked, the themes of family and revenge and atonement,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Owning your mistakes. Like she was like, "I'm sorry if we don't make it out of here. I just want you to know I'm sorry." And
Right.
the sister forgives her. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It had a lot of themes going on that I really liked, and women not taking bullshit, fighting back.
Right.
Like
Yeah. And being badass at it.
and being badass. She was never a damsel, and I loved that.
Yeah.
She was
She
great.
didn't
It's
give up. She didn't stop.
Yeah, it's completely watchable. So if
Yeah.
you haven't seen it, go see it. If you're not going to go to the theater, definitely stream it when it comes out.
Right. It's still in theaters now. It just dropped
Yeah,
last week, so it's still in theaters now. Go see it.
go see it. Go support.
Mhm.
We are the Watchers. I'm Victoria.
And I'm Kevin.
Check us out. Check us out online. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on Spotify. If you can join our Patreon, please do. Thanks so much for watching.
Until next time.